is one of my top movies ever created. Not only movies, but series just in general. If you don't know what Narnia is, it is a movie about basically these kids who find their way into an alternate dimension where they are destined to become kings and queens while basically defending the land of these talking magical animals that have to fight some evil guys. Like there's a witch who basically can freeze everything, and that's one of the plots of one of the movies is she is freezing everything. Or there's like a lot of other plots too. I do recommend going and watching it. I don't want to just like spoil the entire movie. Sorry, but as a overall, Narnia is peak. Like in my opinion, especially for the time period it was made. The movie itself was made in like the early 2000s, maybe late 90s. I don't know the exact year, but the CGI in the movie was incredible. Now, some people say they used a real lion. I don't really know what that is, but basically, one of the main people in the movie is a lion, and he is essentially the king of the beast in the best way I can represent it. While he's the king of the beast, these kids are the kings and the queens of Narnia. And Narnia itself has a completely different timeline than Earth. So while maybe 10 minutes pass on Earth, only, or sorry, not only, but years and years and years can pass in Narnia. So when they are basically living their entire lives, when they're saving the kingdoms, when they're, making a kingdom be this gargantuan figure basically in the realm of Narnia, they are still only, 16 to 8 years old technically in the real world, which they never really get into that too much because there's a large thing in Narnia where I think it'd be too hard to have the actors basically live almost the entire lifetime and then go back to their home and then make them regular kids. Because I mean, imagine you pull up in Narnia, right? And you save basically the entire kingdom. You become a hero. You live for 60 years in Narnia, and then you have to go back home and be a regular dude. Like you'd have a little bit of an ego. Like let's just be honest, because not even an ego. It's like you are a king, right? You live the entire life of being a king, so they never really show that struggle, which kind of respect behind it because I don't really know how they would show the struggle as an overall. But as the movies progress, a little bit of spoilers ahead, by the way. As the movies progress, after they kind of make the entire kingdom and everything, they do end up going back home. And one of the plots of the later movies is basically them finding Narnia once again when they're a little bit older. And basically, when they re-enter Narnia, so many years have passed that they are barely remembered as kings and queens because it's like 2 years in the real world is like 20 or 40 or 50 years in Narnia, basically. Like they never give a exact time dilation. But in the early 2000s, like I said, the animation and the cinematics of the movie were just so good. And I think there's something kind of magical behind a lot of the early 2000s movies that is kind of unexplainable. Like the 2000s feel behind a movie makes you feel like you're watching a movie, and it still feels kind of fake. So it kind of like gives it that old nostalgia feel for every single movie that was made in like the early 2000s. And I think that's kind of a weird comparison, especially nowadays where we can borderline make magic look real. Not even borderline. We can make magic look real in movies now without having to add anything special or adding pizzazz to it or get it perfect. And I think that's something that Narnia did. Narnia and Harry Potter are very similar in that way, where they made this movie and they had to make it look perfect because there wasn't a way to make it look perfect. So they had to try 10 times harder. Now, like I said, I don't know if they used a real lion. They might have. I heard that they did, but I doubt it. If they did, I mean, that's a crazily trained lion to just thug out sitting next to a bunch of these people, unless they shot the scene separately, which I guess that would kind of make sense. But yeah, one of my favorite movies of all time. Now you might be asking, why are we talking about this today? And I mean, it's because they are basically trying to make a potential new movie. IMAX CEO Richard Gelfond says Greta Gerwig's adaptation of Narnia is really going to change the world. Now, I don't really know what that means by it's going to change the world, because I think that we might be past where movies can really change the world, at least in my opinion, as of like the current date. Uh, unless it's going to be like 6D or something like that. Just because I have such a love and fondness for, especially a lot of the early 2000s movies like The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Narnia, and Harry Potter, the late 90s, early 2000s. And I think it's going to be hard to have that nostalgic feel, you know? I think that's something that's going to be really, really difficult, because in a lot of these older movies, you kind of get that oldness, right? You get that griminess. You get like kind of a visual that you think that you would probably see in person. If I was in person and I saw this in a old timey kingdom, right? This picture right here in an old timey kingdom, I would probably be like, okay, that is a picture I could probably see. The same thing with this, like, yeah, it's a little bit of heightened lighting and stuff like that, but in reality, it's such like a nostalgic feel that I feel like I could probably see this in real life. You're kind of like viewing from a distance. You see him off. You see the girl talking to the satyr. You're like, hey, what's happening over there? Like, I don't know. That there's just something behind it that I don't think will be able to be recaptured. Now, obviously, this isn't any hate to the person making this movie. I think anybody has the right, especially if you get the rights, to attempt to remake a movie and potentially make it better. They can 100% do that, and I hope they do. I hope they deliver on the best Narnia, uh, like to book ratio that we've ever seen. I think that would be amazing, because I know they didn't add a lot of the stuff from the books. I also know that they skipped a lot of the books because Narnia wasn't super, super, super popular in the first place. So yeah, that's just kind of where I am right now. I don't know. Do you guys really love like the older looking movies, like the nostalgic looking movies? There's just the lighting was so different, and I think that's the big thing. Is a lot of the old lighting was that the warm, darky undertone lighting that they used in basically everything. And then anytime they had snow, like you can kind of see it here, they're just bright, bright, bright lights essentially, and it was just always so good throughout the movie. Like even this, like you can tell this is fake, like if you compare it to new movies, but I think there's just something magical about it. I don't know. I hope they make the new one good. I hope uh that they just focus on like trying to make it whimsical, trying to make you feel like you could be the one doing the magic, or that could happen to you. I think that's something that a lot of people underestimate in a lot of new gen movies. That's actually why I don't watch a lot of new movies, because it feels like they don't take into consideration of putting someone else in that person's mind or in that situation. It's just like, oh well, here's the story about this guy. It's like, okay, well that's cool, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, and thank you guys for watching. Have a good night. Peace.